I've done many podcasts. Nobody has ever lit some incense, which is very important. And what a wonderful way to start.
It is important. Like, I think so many times we can get unintentional about things, and it's just so nice when we can slow down and be in the moment. Do you do that with cooking at all? Like, slow down and get intentional?
Of course.
Yeah.
I think that prep for me
Mm-hmm.
is a wonderful way to just really get grounded.
Oh, I
Right?
like that. As
Yeah.
I was watching you, I was thinking about all the prep that goes into it, but that's a really beautiful way to bring ritual into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people say, stir frying is labor intensive, but it isn't. It's no more than prepping for a salad, right?
No.
And when you're really in the moment and just taking care to cut your vegetables, or mince your ginger, it's a wonderful way. It's a meditation of its own, right?
It is. It really is. So thank you for that reflection. And really, I feel like I got a deep dive already into your world today. So I'm really excited to welcome everyone and our live audience today at Lake Austin Spa Resort to this very special Wise Women episode of the Amy Edwards Show. And we are in this gorgeous setting to record today. I'm so grateful. This space just slows you down too, right?
Yes, for sure.
For sure. It just feels like renewal and reflection and showing up as your truest self. And that they give a whole month for wise women is just exceptional. So I'm so honored to introduce everyone to you today, Grace Young. Grace, you're visiting from New York City, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Well, welcome to Austin. And you are I'm going to give everyone a little bit of information. You are a 3-time James Beard Award winner, a 6-time IACP Award winner, including the 2021 Lifetime Achievement Award. You are an award-winning cookbook author, a culinary historian, and you're often called the stir-fry guru, which is your moniker on Instagram as well. And I'm only scratching the surface with all the things that you have done and achieved in your lifetime. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to your website where I would encourage everyone to go check out your work, your recognition, your accolades, your appearances. It's so moving to read. But what's even more moving is your journey that goes much deeper than all of that, which is your advocacy and your purpose and your work. And in 2020, as the world closed in, Grace's path shifted, and she walked into Manhattan's Chinatown and saw a community in crisis. Small businesses were shuttering. Vibrant culture was under threat. Lives were hanging in the balance, and you were moved by what you witnessed and stepped out of the kitchen and into advocacy, despite having no prior experience as an activist. The grassroots work that you have done has since sparked a nationwide movement, earning you honors like the Julia Child Award, the James Beard Humanitarian of the Year Award, inclusion in Forbes 50 over 50, and even being dubbed the accidental voice of Chinatown. Your story is a reminder that purpose can find us at any age, and wisdom is often born through transition, loss, and radical love for others and for community. And you have been called the Poet Laureate of the Walk. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so
Yes.
much.
I feel like I got Walk 101 today. I got to sample your cooking. I got to learn exactly how to season a wok. I mean, magnificent tutorial. Thank you so much. I'm so lucky. And you also I feel like I got a tour of Chinatown with you because I got to see your segment on the Drew Barrymore show that aired today. So, which was a tour of Chinatown. So really cool to dive into your world. And today I want to just go deeper about this journey to purpose at any age and the wisdom that it has brought you in your life. And what I wrote down here was I want to explore how purpose reawakens later in life, but I feel like sometimes it awakens, it's not even a reawakening. How do you feel like that has been for you? Have you been so surprised? Did you think you had purpose before and now you're like, oh, this is purpose?
I definitely loved my work as a Chinese cookbook author and as a teacher. It's one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done in my life. I started writing, my first cookbook was a memoir cookbook about my family's recipes and stories, and I wrote it because I felt that all the members of my family of my generation uh, had not learned recipes from their parents, and that our culinary traditions were at risk of becoming lost. So I loved recording. My parents were extraordinary cooks, and my uncles and aunties. And so I really cherished being able to get down those recipes. And actually, now my parents have passed away, and many of the older family friends and relatives have passed away. And so that first book, Wisdom of the Chinese Kitchen, is extremely precious to me. And sometimes I can't remember certain things. And as I'm thumbing through the book, it's just old wisdom comes up.
Wow.
I suddenly realized, I guess like last year or so, that as my parents were aging, they were taking Korean ginseng.
Mm.
And that's a very important thing as you age because your body is a little weaker. So it's a little bit of a boost of energy. It improves your memory. It's good for your
I'm
heart.
in
Yeah,
already. I'm like
right?
sold. So where's my Korean
Yeah.
ginseng? Yes.
So, I mean, in my younger years, I just never really thought about it, but all that information was in the book. And I was like, oh, yes, they took Korean ginseng regularly, like once a week. And my Auntie Margaret, who is also like in incredible shape, was a regular Korean ginseng taker. My parents lived to be in their 90s, and
Nice.
they had very, very few health issues. So there was a lot of wisdom in the way they lived their life.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so I mean, too, there's a through line there, right? You were preserving culture before as your purpose, and then you moved into it in just a much different
Yes.
way.
So my cookbooks are all about preservation of culinary culture. And then, as you mentioned, Chinatown at the start of the pandemic suddenly became a ghost town. Because of misinformation and xenophobia, there were many people that thought that by coming to Chinatown, they would risk catching COVID.
Mm.
And so when I saw Chinatown empty out, and that meant that many, many businesses in the beginning lost maybe 40% of their revenues, but many businesses also lost up to 80% of their revenues. And I realized that if someone didn't speak up, that these businesses would go out of business. So I sort of shifted from preserving recipes and culinary culture to preserving one of the great centers of Chinese culinary culture in America, which is New York's Chinatown. But all the old Chinatowns, San Francisco, Boston, Philadelphia, they are all very, very important centers for Chinese culture, traditions, and food.
Yes, for sure. Did you have a moment though when you saw everything shutting down, you thought like, okay, who's going to do something? Like who's going to step up? Like how did you tap into what you needed to be that voice?
Right. So by chance, I ended up in Chinatown on March 15th, Sunday, March
Oh yeah.
15th, doing interviews of 5 different restaurant and shop owners. And unbeknownst to me and the videographer who I was with, Dan On, Mayor de Blasio was just about to put New York City in lockdown. A few
Wow.
hours later, he put us in lockdown.
Wow.
And so we went in there to do these interviews because it was my idea that if New Yorkers heard about how much these businesses were suffering, that they would rally their support. And the director of Poster House Museum at the time, Julia Knight, said that if I did these interviews, she would put them on the Poster House website, which was absolutely incredible. So we were in Chinatown, and all the interviews were heartbreaking because all the owners spoke about the fact that since January, they had been um, they had been faced with impossible choices. Every day they were open, they were losing money, and they knew that they had to close. That that
Oh,
reality was becoming clear, and many of them had employees who had been with them for decades.
wow.
So the idea of having to lay off workers who were like family to you was absolutely heartbreaking. So one of the interviews that really stands out for me is when we went into Hopkey restaurant, and Hopkey had been part of Chinatown since the late 60s. Normally there is a line out the door, the restaurant is packed. I had seen the owner a few weeks earlier because I'd done an interview with him for Food and Wine magazine. We go to Hopkey, no line, only one table was occupied. He brings us into the kitchen, and there's no cooking.
Ah,
I've been in so many Chinese restaurant kitchens. I've never been to a Chinese restaurant kitchen that was quiet.
mm,
And Peter Lee, the owner, said to me that he had made the decision, not knowing de Blasio was about to put us in lockdown, that he had to close the next day. And he had tears in his eyes.
wow.
And he said, I don't know if and when we will reopen. And I remember looking at the cooks and the dishwashers and the waiters in the room, um, and they were all seniors. Nobody was in their 20s or 30s.
Wow.
And everyone had a look on their face that I can still see right now. And I thought to myself, how are they going to pay their rent, their bills? How will they get food on their table? If you're an elderly Chinatown restaurant worker, how do you get a new job in the middle of a
Mm-mm.
pandemic? And I thought everybody outside of Chinatown is not aware of what's happening. And these workers have no way of getting their story out. Most of them don't speak English, and even if they spoke English, they would be extremely intimidated to do a media interview. So from my years of being a cookbook author, I've done lots of interviews, and I'm very comfortable in that situation. I thought to myself, you have to speak up. You have to reach out to the media. You have to get word out that Chinatown is in trouble.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was totally an accident, right?
Yeah.
Like I had no plan that, oh, I will now become a Chinatown activist. I just thought you have to do something. And so I reached out to media that I knew. I got onto the local radio station. I got onto a national radio station to talk about the fact that it wasn't just Manhattan's Chinatown. It was happening to Chinatowns all across the United States. They were all deserted. They were all ghost towns.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
that's how it started.
It's like that feeling I can't not do something. Like I can't not do it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've felt like that before. I've done a little bit of advocacy work, and it was just sort of an interesting feeling when you're like, well, I can't not.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's interesting too to think like you had all this preparation that you didn't even understand was prepping you for something so important and like from the heart to save people's lives, literally.
Exactly. Yeah. I just realized that if you don't speak up, these businesses are going down. And actually, at that point, I had seen a few businesses already shut down, and one of them was an old legacy business that had been a part of Chinatown for over 40 years. And when I saw that restaurant, which was called Hoi Wong, um, when that storefront was shuttered, that's when my heart sank. And I thought, oh my God, like this is a warning of what's about to come.
Hmm.
And if nobody is speaking about this and the rest of New York is not aware, we're just going to lose Chinatown. And at that point, I had always thought that Chinatown was like this, Chinatown could survive anything. I thought Chinatown was like the sun rises, Chinatown's there, right? But when I stepped into Chinatown and Mott Street, which is the main thoroughfare, was deserted. No cars, no pedestrians. I'd never seen anything like that.
No, it's bustling. I've been.
Always,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
there's tourists and there's locals, and no matter the weather. And I kept coming back thinking, oh, it's going to change. Like suddenly the crowds are going to reappear, but they never reappeared. And it just slowly sunk in that this is
This is
Chinatown's
happening.
this
This
is
is happening.
Chinatown's new reality.
Is it
So
back now?
last year it was starting to finally get its mojo back, right? It
Good.
was finally finding its footing.
Mm,
But this year, Chinatowns from Honolulu to New York City are all reporting that foot traffic is down dramatically, and it's because of inflation, tariffs. Tariffs are really making Chinatown suffer. There's increased crime,
mhm.
and there's a dramatic drop in tourism.
Tourism, that's what I was thinking too. Yeah.
Yeah. And the historic Chinatowns like San Francisco, New York, Boston, Philly are extremely dependent on tourism.
Wow.
There are lots of satellite Chinatowns,
Mhm.
and they are supported by locals. But the old Chinatowns, which are so important to the story of America,
Yeah.
are really hurting.
Yeah, I can tell the difference because what we have here in Austin is more local and,
Yes.
and then visiting New York is like a destination,
Yes.
you want to go. So, well, does it pivot some of your activism too right now with, how you can help and figuring that out when you see them taking a hit this year in a whole different way?
Yes. I mean, as I said, like last year, I thought to myself, I can go back to writing a cookbook.
Mhm.
But right now, I feel like I have to do everything in my power to raise awareness. And when people hear that Chinatown is hurting,
Yeah.
I think most people have a great fondness and love for Chinatown. And so many
Yeah, it's a whole vibe.
yeah,
Yeah.
all of us have like very, very happy memories of things that you've done in Chinatown from the time you were a child,
Mhm.
that your parent or grandparent brought you in, or when you were in college. This is the first restaurant, Chinese restaurant that I went to. So Chinatown represents not just a place for great food, but it tells our story.
Yeah.
And so many of these businesses, these mom and pop businesses, um, are part of our history,
Mhm.
our collective history,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that Chinatown is one of the things that makes New York City great,
I do
makes
too.
San Francisco great,
Yes.
Boston, Philly. Um, and it really tells the story of America. So many of the businesses were started by people that immigrated to the United States with very little, and through sheer hard work, you know, they were able to start mom and pop businesses,
Mhm.
and create a community, put food on the table, open doors for their children to receive an education. For some, they were even able to buy a home. So I think for many people, Chinatown was a gateway for achieving the American dream.
For sure. And I think that, Chinese culture goes back so far. And in America, we kind of forget the power of stories, that we need those stories. And then if something like that is gone, it's just gone. And we didn't do our part to preserve it. And I just think being a young country, we don't quite grasp that. And you were born and raised in the US?
Born and raised in the U.S., and my father was born in America and raised in China.
Mhm.
Um, the first 2 years of the pandemic, Manhattan's Chinatown lost 150 businesses.
Wow.
I was raised in San Francisco. Chinatown was just this wonderful community when I was growing up, um, and always bustling. Everybody seemed to know each other. Grant Avenue, I think in 2021, 22, had 50 storefronts that were closed. In my lifetime, I've never seen 3.
Wow.
So I kept on thinking to myself, if my father had lived to see this, he would just be stunned. He wouldn't be able to imagine Chinatown with 50 shuttered storefronts on Grant Avenue.
I mean, maybe that's something good that came out of the pandemic, that we realized we have to step up and preserve things and preserve stories, you know?
I think the pandemic really taught us that we can't take life for granted,
Yeah.
right?
because it was just
Yeah.
such a shock. Did you know that growing up? Did you always have, like, a sense of story and the wisdom that came from it and value that? Or was it something that you kinda grew into as your first cookbook?
I think I grew up with it, but I took it for granted,
Mm.
and it wasn't something that I really appreciated until I grew older. Um, there are so many medicinal soups in Chinese cuisine. The principles of Chinese cuisine are based on yin and yang and having balance in your diet. I listened to all that with half an ear when my mother and father would say it to me, but now I understand the wisdom. And now I'm just like, oh, yes. Now it's the autumn, and I really need to protect my body more because there are certain soups that you drink because the changing of the seasons
Mhm.
leaves you more susceptible to getting sick, right?
Yeah.
Um, and there's so much wisdom in Chinese cooking. I just did something for New York Climate Week, and in preparing for that, I realized, in Chinese cuisine, we don't waste anything. The very act of stir frying is cooking very, very quickly in 2 or 3 minutes. I think in the West, nobody is thinking when I'm roasting something, I'm using cooking fuel for 2 or 3 hours.
No.
Right.
Oh
When
my
you're
god.
braising something, when you're making a stew,
Yeah.
nobody's saying, "Oh, I'm using cooking fuel for like 2 hours to make the chili." But in stir frying, when you see someone cook with a traditional hearth stove in China. So it's a clay stove. You feed either dried rice stalks or grass stalks, right?
Mhm.
And then you fire up the
No, I don't
stove.
know,
You
but
put
yeah.
you put the wok in the hole, and then um, you make your stir fry. And after the stir fry is done, it takes 2 or 3 minutes.
Right.
If you look into the fuel chamber, there's not even a quarter of an inch of the rice stalk left. So the cook is so in tune with how much is required to make a stir fry, and they're not going to waste an extra half inch. When I was
Like, ultra efficient.
right? Ultra
Yeah.
efficient. My mentor was this wonderful woman named Florence Lynn, who has since passed away. But when I wrote my last cookbook, Stir Frying to the Sky's Edge, she told me that when she was a young teenager in China, she went to live in the countryside with her mother and grandmother, and that they would only stir fry every fortnight because it was such an extravagance to stir fry. So
Oh.
using fuel for 2 or 3 minutes was an extravagance. So instead, they would cook a big wok of rice. And when the water had almost evaporated, so the rice wasn't completely done, they would place a rack over the rice, and then they would put a shallow dish of like a fresh fish with scallions and ginger and maybe a little soy sauce and rice wine. They would put a shallow dish of beaten eggs to make a savory custard, a shallow dish with pickled vegetables, another one with maybe baby bok choy, and then they would cover the lid of the wok. And in the time it took to finish cooking the rice, all those other dishes would be cooked.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to waste cooking fuel making each dish,
So smart. Yes.
right?
Yes. Wow. It strikes me listening to you too, like, the wisdom that you find comes from, tuning into what you're actually doing, like,
Yes.
and also nature and, like, giving thought to all these things that we can just sorta I mean, living where we live too with all our amenities, that we can just coast right over. So, when you think of wisdom, what does that really mean to you now? What's the difference between that and knowledge?
Well, um, I'll give you an example.
Okay. I
Um,
love examples. Great.
right now, I feel like our culture in America is so um, the culture of online shopping and shopping in big box chains. is just growing exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is accustomed to scrolling and clicking. And then if the package doesn't arrive the next day, you're a little irritated, right?
Yeah.
Or,
I looked at my husband.
but we've forgotten that mom and pop businesses are the backbone of America. And so I really saw this so dramatically during the pandemic. 98% of the businesses in Chinatown are made up of mom and pop businesses. And I just feel that when you're shopping, nowadays you could go to a Whole Foods or a Target, right? And you can actually check out yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can go into the store and never deal with a human being. Whereas when you go into Chinatown with these little mom and pop businesses, it's a reminder of your humanity,
Mm.
that we are connected to each other. And it is such a different experience. I was just telling some of the students yesterday at Lake Austin Spa Resort that, when in the pandemic in 2020, during the worst of the pandemic, I went to visit one of the owners at this store called KK Discount. Um, and he confided in me that he had lost 80% of his restaurant business and 50% of his walk-in customers. But he said to me that day he was feeling optimistic because he had gotten 2 new customers. And I thought to myself, I was just so blown away by this. I thought, business is so bad, but you feel optimistic because you have 2 new customers. And he said, well, if I do a really good job, maybe they'll come back and maybe they'll recommend me to their friends. And I thought, would Amazon, would Whole Foods notice 2 new customers and would they care?
No.
So I think it's so important that all of us show up for the mom and pop businesses, not just in Chinatown, but all across this country right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is the heart and soul of our country,
Truly.
right?
Truly. I just read some, I don't know, meme or something, and it was talking about an author, a writer, and he was telling his wife, I need an envelope. And she said, well, you can order an envelope. You can get one from Amazon, whatever. And he said, no, I want to go out, buy an envelope. He went to a store, did the whole act of buying an envelope and interacted with a person. And I was like, we just are moving so fast sometimes that we're just ordering the envelope, and
Yeah.
like when we could go to KK and purchase, whatever it is and really connect with someone and have heart around it. And it's just all too easy to forget. And this is really, I don't know, this is just impacting where I'm at in my life right now because that's what I want. Is that some bothering you? Are you okay?
No, I'm okay. When you go into some of the restaurants in Chinatown, before you even open your mouth, the waiter says, I know you want wonton noodle soup with roast pork because you've been in there so many times that they know.
Yeah.
And I think it really is touching to realize that you're being seen.
Yeah.
And we're not being seen when we're shopping online and we're just scrolling and clicking and ordering the Grubhub and it gets delivered. That the
touchless delivery at your door. Yes.
The interaction is a really important part of our being and connection is what makes us human.
Yes.
Right?
It so is. The connection is, and it's where that wisdom lies, right? It's in connecting with other people. It's not reading books alone necessarily in your home.
Right.
Right?
There's a little store in Chinatown that is owned by a mother and father. And late in the afternoon, their 3 daughters show up after school. And there's a little room that if you just peek into, they're eating a snack and they're doing their homework. And then around 4 or 5 o'clock, they come out and they start trimming the vegetables, helping their parents, or running the cash register. And they're all together until about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night when they all go back to Brooklyn. And when you see this, when you see the amount of work that this family is in it together, you want them to succeed, right? I'd rather go to this store and buy my carrots or bok choy or onions, potatoes, whatever it is, and give them my business than to go to a big box chain where, as I said, they don't even notice that I've come in, right?
No, no.
And and that, Mr. Lee saying 2 new customers, every customer counts, right? That it makes such a huge difference for these businesses.
Yeah,
So I think it's really a reminder of our humanity.
it really truly is. I mean, I just have had to check myself on some of that recently. And I felt like I was like setting up an Amazon store with links or whatever, because people do that. And then I was like, wait, what am I doing? This doesn't align with my values at all. This isn't about putting money in Jeff Bezos's pocket. It's about like, I want to connect with people. That's why I do this show, not to have this anonymous thing. Right. And so, thank you for like, the work that you do that really connects us to the stories and to community. Um, have you experienced some moments of doubt and pushback and opposition? And how have you stayed grounded? And like, what internal practices keep you going in those moments? Or what would you advise people if they're facing that?
When you're doing work that's uh, advocacy,
Yeah. Or
so
just following your purpose, whatever
right,
that might be.
um, I think that I never had any major plans or strategy. Everything that I have done has been just little small acts, but they build, right?
Mm.
And I think sometimes uh, things are not, things are looking bleak for sure. When I go to Chinatown and I see the streets are empty, they're not as deserted as they were in 2020. But when businesses say to me, um, we're just not getting the customers right now. Manhattan's Chinatown is also dealing with the fact that starting in January, we got congestion pricing. So that means every car that drives to downtown Manhattan is charged an extra $9. So many
What?
restaurant and business owners have told me that businesses dropped 30 to 40% because of congestion pricing.
Who did that?
Yeah,
Oh my
so we
gosh.
were getting the double, triple whammy.
Wow.
But when you see these things, you just have to just keep on carrying on, right?
Yeah.
And and then you get little bits of, someone will tell me something that gives me hope that there's still possibilities and that we are making a difference.
Do you have any go-tos within yourself? Like, do you, I think that we covered kind of the meditative act of food prep, right? But do you have that's okay. Do you have any other practices within yourself that you tend to lean on even when you're maybe not finding the hope or something like that?
During the pandemic, my friend Linda Pagan said to me that Desmond Tutu said, do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world.
Mm,
And I think that's a really important message that, yeah, just do what you can. Do what you can. And it does make a difference.
it does make it. It's all the little bits of the stir fry of life.
Yes.
That,
Yes.
they're all little important parts. I mean, my gosh, that tiny bit drop of soy sauce in the stir fry earlier was like set off all sorts of flavors, right? It's
Exactly.
doing its part. So, do you ever look at your life and you're kind of surprised by how it's going now and the turn that it's taken? And
Right.
I mean, I guess I'm thinking about anybody maybe who's later in life and feels off path or something like that. Like, did you ever see your path going this way? And do you just look and how do you feel? Are you surprised?
I have said that if anyone had told me all the things that have happened to me in the last 5 years, from um, receiving the Beard Humanitarian Award or the Julia Child Award at the Smithsonian, being invited to the White House, speaking at the U.S. Capitol. It's so wild everything that has happened, being named Forbes 50 over 50 honoree.
So
I
cool.
was a USA Today Woman of the Year. My picture was on the cover of USA Today.
Wow.
Um, it is so beyond comprehension. And if anyone had told me this 5 years ago, 10, 15, I would have just said, "What are you smoking?" Right? um, but it is, I'm just so grateful. And all of it happened late in life. All of this started when I was turning 64, uh, when I became a new person to myself and to others. I thought I knew everything there was to know about me. And then this whole other side of me emerged
Mhm.
that I didn't know existed.
Wow.
That I was a gritty grassroots organizer. I've never gone on protest marches. I've never been an activist. My parents raised me to be quiet, to never speak up. They said, speaking up can only get you in trouble, right? It's better to be quiet, silent, invisible.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and prior to what happened to me during the pandemic, maybe I had given 2 or 3 speeches in my life that were completely nerve-wracking, terrifying, high anxiety. And during the pandemic, I spoke at the U.S. Capitol in front of 20 senators. I've given so many speeches. It's just, all of this is just crazy.
Did anything come up from that old stuff where you were like, "Shut up, I have to go do this"? Was it like old voices in your head that were like,
Oh, for sure. Many, many nights after a long day of work, as I was drifting off to sleep, I would think to myself, if my parents had lived to see any of this, they would be so angry and so upset that why do you have to speak up? Why are you doing this interview? Why are you talking about these problems? But now in the last couple of years when I've received these awards and gone to the White House, I've also thought to myself, in a million years, my parents would never, ever have dreamed that their daughter would be a Chinese American daughter would be welcomed to the White House. That would
right.
have just completely um, blown their minds. It would have been, it's just incomprehensible to them.
Mm.
It's incomprehensible to me. Um, but during the pandemic, Michelle Yeoh won the Best Actress award at the Academy
Oh,
Awards.
yeah.
And in her speech, she said, ladies, don't, don't ever let anybody tell you that you're ever past your prime.
Mhm.
And when I heard that, I just thought to myself, I feel that. Like, I feel that to my core. And that at any stage of your life, right? Here
Mhm.
I am in my 60s. Most of my friends were retiring, and I have been going 24/7, right? I feel purpose. I feel a calling, and I've done the most meaningful work of my life. And there's something so without any of those awards, um, just going into Chinatown and going to these restaurants or shops and they know who I am. They're so grateful,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So I used to, like so many people, eat at restaurants, shop in stores, and recognize, some of the people there, smile. But I never introduce myself, right? Most of us don't. We
Mm-mm.
just sort of come and go and do our own thing. And now I've become part of the Chinatown community, right? It's just been, this week was the Mid-Autumn Festival. And several different businesses contacted me because they had mooncakes for me,
Mm.
right? They had made them and it's so sweet. It's just, you can't put a price on that,
Mm-mm.
right?
Mm-mm.
And it's just their way of showing their appreciation to me. But it's just, I think community is such an important part of our lives that we have lost touch with. In the old days, when I was a child, we grew up with a lot more community, and that feeling is lost these days.
Yeah, I agree. And I just went in a store yesterday, as a matter of fact, and two women had opened it, and I had to I noticed I had to push myself a little bit to introduce myself. And then I was like, why am I holding myself back a little bit or not connecting with them? I mean, it's a cute store and all this. And so I didn't, and I opened up and introduced myself and everything. I didn't look very nice,
Right.
but then I was so glad I did. And it's just like you're saying, like, why? I don't know. Maybe we just get conditioned or, are told.
I'm shy. I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
reserved. I'm not the kind of like, I hate cocktail parties where, "Hi, my name is Grace,
Yeah.
how are you?" That's not my thing, but in reaching out to these people during the pandemic when I realized that they were struggling,
Yeah.
um, we connected. And there is, um, it's very important that we all know that we've got each other's backs,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And for Mr. Lee, sometimes I would walk into the store and he would show me like a stack of walk boxes and say, these walks, they're shipping today,
Yeah.
and he would, say it was because of me. I don't think it's necessarily because of me, but he just made that connection. But whatever,
Mm-hmm.
it just gives him a sense of hope that there are people who are trying to help.
Yeah.
You're not out there on your own. We're in it together.
Yeah. We are. If you were to say something to your younger self, what would you say?
I would say that it's so important that you always speak up
Mm,
and that you always do what you can um, for whatever is your passion in life, right?
yes.
Um, and that will reveal itself to you.
Mm,
And that in following your passion, which I did with cooking,
yeah.
right? So I was certainly on that track, but then the track took like this really unexpected turn.
Yeah.
And that you just don't know what's down the road.
You really don't. You
Yeah.
never know. And there's a lot about staying open. And there you were in a place and time that, okay, I guess it's me, So that's so beautiful. Thank you so much for all that you've shared. I want to ask, since we have a live audience, does anyone have a question that they wanted to ask Grace? Anybody? Yes, you do?
I'm from Vancouver.
She's asking about
Yes.
Vancouver's.
So I have attended two different Chinatown symposiums where people from different Chinatowns in North America have gotten together, and Chinatowns in Canada in general are all suffering, just like America. We didn't speak about this before, but from 2020, there were anti-Asian hate crimes. So it wasn't just the fact that there was loss of business and people were afraid to come into Chinatowns. So Vancouver's Chinatown has really been suffering. And it's one of the most beautiful. I mean, you have two different Chinatowns. You have the one in Richmond and then the other one. I can't remember what that name is called, but they're all suffering right now.
Yeah. Um, as you've done all this and grown wiser, no doubt, do you think that your definition of strength has changed with the people that you've seen in Chinatown as well, and yourself?
Yes. Uh, During the pandemic, one of the things that I really noticed was that the people of Chinatown never spoke up for themselves. It was not their first instinct to
That was
say,
like your
right?
background, yeah.
Yeah, I've got to
Wow.
get this story out. Let me get to the major paper in Chinatown. Let me go on the radio station. Their response was to work harder.
Yeah.
So if you've lost 80% of your business and you work 7 days a week and you already work 10 hours a day to make up for the loss of not getting that many customers, then you work 12 or 14 hours a day. And when I saw the grit that the people of Chinatown showed during pandemic, that's when I just, every time like there's any kind of hardship or something that I'm dealing with, I just think, you're just such a big baby. Like you're such a little princess. Like these guys
Yeah.
they are warriors. There's the fruit stand that is shown on the Drew Barrymore show, which I mentioned was my favorite fruit stand. The woman who runs that fruit stand starts it at 9 in the morning, and there were times I've seen her closing down at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. And I'm talking about in New York City on the hottest, most humid days where you don't want to be outside away from air conditioning for more than 15 minutes. You don't even want to step outside. She's out there. And on the coldest winter day when it's been snowing and it's wet and rainy and that you can feel the chill to your bones, she's out there. And during COVID, when Chinatown was a ghost town, she was out there.
Wow.
Dealing with people that were trying to like topple her stand. So, yeah, I learned to respect the fact that all these people in Chinatown were not looking for handouts. They just worked harder.
Wow.
There's an amazing business in Chinatown called Grantian Imports. They're open 365 days a year. It's a multi-generational business, mom and dad and 2 daughters. And, most Chinatown businesses are closed for the Lunar New Year.
Yeah.
So, and to my, I still can't comprehend, but that's what they have to do to survive. It's a necessity
And
that they work 365 days. Like, so all of us have that feeling of like, oh my God, I've worked so long, like it was a really rough week. Can't wait for the weekend. It's just like, oh my God, I can't believe Maggie Smith in Downton Abbey, where she says, "What's a weekend?" Right? That's the famous line. Like in Chinatown, those poor workers, many of them don't know what's a weekend. They don't know what a day off means. And so again, that's more reason for me. I just think to myself, I have so much respect for them. I've got to not only give them my business, I've got to find a way that they survive. I've got to raise awareness and tell other people that they need to show up. And Chinatown is this incredible place. Like right now, everyone is watching, trying to stretch their dollars. Food is more expensive. But if you go to Chinatown, it's not just a place to eat in the restaurants. It has some of the best shopping in the world. It has the best produce and, all the staple ingredients that you can buy in the markets. The prices that they offer there are much more reasonable than anything that you can find anywhere else in the city.
So everybody go.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, we're starting to come up on time and wrap up. But before we go, I have to ask this. You mentioned Korean ginseng. Is there anything else that we need to know that's wisdom that like you're using that we all need to be using?
Oh
like,
my
as we
gosh.
age? What other wisdom can you impart upon us around things like that we need to be doing?
Well, I just taught a stir fry class here
Yes.
today, and I think stir frying is just a genius technique, not only because of the fact that you use very little cooking fuel, but the fact that it emphasizes the primary focus of a stir fry are the vegetables, and often a variety of vegetables and what's in season. If it uses meat, it is a condiment, right? In Western cooking,
I've heard that.
In Western cooking, you're often eating a whole chicken breast, 8 ounces, or a whole steak, right? But in a Chinese stir fry, you're using one whole chicken breast that is cut into slices and that is divided among 4 people, right? So that It's primarily vegetables with a little bit of meat protein, possibly of chicken, beef, pork, fish, shrimp, something like that. And it uses very little fat, right? We all know that we don't need extra fat in our diets, but fat is certainly important because it's one way that we absorb vitamins into our body. And when you're stir frying with a wok, you're actually transferring iron from the carbon steel or cast iron into your food. So it's an incredibly healthy way of eating.
We're all
Yeah,
looking for another magic pill or something. I'm like, okay, great. What's the one thing that we can do? But of course, it's like just really tuning into what you're putting in your body. And
right.
yes, like, of course.
And
So,
it's quick cooking.
mm-hmm.
Within 2 or 3 minutes, you're done. So it's one of the most healthy ways that we can cook for ourselves and eat a variety of vegetables. And we need protein.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't like meat protein, it could be tofu. But I think there is stir frying is just a genius system of it's a genius culinary technique.
I do too. I do too. I've stir fry for years. I'm a big fan. And now I'm upping my game with the wok that I'm going to season. So
Yes.
thank you for that. All right. Well, as we wrap up today, I want to ask you, is there anything that we missed today or anything that is on your heart that you'd like to share before we go and leave people with regards to wisdom, purpose, life, you know?
I just think that it's so important right now, which is, we're all living in an extremely challenging time, that we have to rise above the fray. And we have to show up in any way that we can in our communities and do what we can to improve each other's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, it's more important than ever to speak up and to show up.
I love that you said that. I've been thinking about showing up lately and just, you don't even have to know what to do. Just show up, right?
Right.
Just the act of doing it.
And sometimes the path may not be clear, but it unfolds.
Yours sure did.
Yeah.
Yes, so beautiful. Grace, thank you so much. This has been an absolute joy. And I'm so grateful to have met you and been able to do my part to share your voice.
Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much to Lake Austin Spa Resort for having us here today. And I highly recommend it. We'll have a link in the show notes if you want. So thank you for being here today, too. Love to hear what you think of the episode. And so please let us know. And everything will be in the show notes for you to connect with Grace further. GraceYoung.com. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. GraceYoung.com or at Stir Fry Guru. So thank you again, Grace. Thank you, Lake Austin Spa Resort. And thank you to everyone here today and to you. Until next time.